museum of slavery. In this museum, thousands and thousands of people come every year to visit this museum. Unfortunately, the Europeans still benefiting from what our ancestors went through. They benefit in the past and it's still right now because these museums across Europe are bringing a lot of revenue for the economy, while the economy of those countries affected by slavery are getting poorer and poorer. This is the reality of the slavery in Europe, in Africa, and America. I'm to reconnect in Africa here in Algarve, Portugal. We're just in front of Lagos Museum here in Portugal, and I just bumped into one of the residents of those years ago were taken across Europe. Am I right?
Yeah.
And she just came to visit the museum here, and I just wanna gather her opinion. I just wanna say, what do you think about the museum?
So my family would have been based in the Caribbean, so they would have been taken from Africa probably via here to the Caribbean. And I mean, it was an interesting museum, but a lot of it was stuff that I would have been taught at primary school. They didn't really go into the depth of what was happening. They didn't romanticize it, but they did kind of put a blanket over what was happening. It was the brutality of slavery and the fact that, you know, the slaves were captured against their will and made to do work. They didn't just adapt to Portuguese society. So, yeah, it was interesting, but I don't think it really went into any real depth in what actually happened during slavery and the impact it had on generations of people.
You said that they didn't go deep enough. How deep were you expecting them to go?
I mean, I've seen other exhibits in other museums, and they talk about how hard it would have been on the ships. They've said about the living conditions on the ships, which it wasn't living conditions. Cattle are, treated better. And also the fact that once they got here, yes, they touched on some would have been more isolated on the plantations, but these people are living against their will in a land that they don't understand, that it isn't what they, and they had lives and civilizations back home. So it just romanticized it a bit too much for me. It is an interesting thing. I say people should definitely see it, but there's more to slavery than I think they touch on. So yeah. I thought it would just be a bit more in depth. I think they're definitely trying to make sure it's shown and people understand it, but they could go into more detail about what really happened with slavery.
Okay. So have you been to other museums around it?
I've been to others. We were in Cape Verde a couple of years ago, and they had a really good museum there, which explained the impact in Cape Verde. Obviously in London as well, in England, and yeah, we've seen it where it's just they're touching it more. In Nevis, where my parents are from. So yeah.
I've done another video back in Lisbon. One thing that we found out is that a lot of things were destroyed because they didn't want to sort of the new generation
See what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't talk on what might have been destroyed or not, but I can imagine that there is much more here that could have been, picked up on or shown and explained more, and even just showing what the ships would have been like inside, showing how people were literally cramped on top of each other with hardly anywhere air to breathe for weeks at sea, and then where they would have lived once they got here. It's not just they lived in the house with the master, it was they lived somewhere horrible.
After so-called abolishment of slavery, one question that is still in my mind is that where are those people? Because they say they send all to America, to Jamaica, all those places, but they didn't send every single person.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if, because in Lisbon there's a valley of the Negro. I don't know if you heard a place where they used to throw the weak, the sick, and the rebellion. So I'm just wondering if after the abolishment of slavery or if after the war, if they did what Argentina and Uruguay did. I'm just wondering.
I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't want to make an assumption, but I don't think they did discuss what happened to the slaves afterwards, or what happened next, basically. So it was a bit, I don't know.
So, what do you know from what you heard from your maybe father, grandfather? What do you know about slavery?
I know that it was a horrific practice. I know that people were taken from very civilized, established histories and lives in Africa to different parts of the world against their will. Children were separated from their parents, and that there is damage, psychological damage that's just passed down to generation because of something that is quite horrific that happened to people against their will at other people's profited from. So.
If you have one word to say to the Portuguese people, to the Europeans, I mean, very sensitive subject, we know that. What would you say?
I think there's nothing wrong with just showing even the harsher side of history, and it doesn't discredit anybody today. It just makes people more aware of what we should make sure doesn't happen again. And the way the world is right now, these kind of things could be happening again, and we want to make sure that never happens.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. This is Reconnecting Africa. You just heard I was talking to one of the descendants of enslaved ancestors. We can't imagine what they went through. My sister's feeling this, and yes.
Thank you.
Stay strong.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.